This presentation serves as a review for Luke chapter 6. It is intended to help you review the events and teaching you have read and researched. This chapter reveals that Jesus met opposition during his ministry despite his miracles. The religious leaders objected to Jesus' failure to keep their cherished traditions concerning the Sabbath. This chapter starts with two of those occasions, one in the grain fields and one in the synagogue. Then Jesus chose 12 men as his personal messengers, the apostles. After more healing, he taught a lesson similar to what is called the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew's Gospel. Now let's examine each of these a little closer. When God gave the 10 Commandments to the Jews, one of those commandments was to keep the Sabbath day holy. The Sabbath was the 7th day of the week, what we would call Saturday, and they were not to do any work on it. Over many centuries, the Jewish leaders had developed their own traditions about what could and couldn't be done on the Sabbath. The actions of Jesus and his followers described in this chapter offended them. The first instance occurred when the disciples of Jesus plucked and ate grain from the fields on the Sabbath. They simply fed themselves, but this action was deemed unlawful by the Pharisees according to their tradition. Jesus' response was twofold. First, he showed them that they were inconsistent. Why did they charge his disciples with what was unlawful, yet they did not object to the actions of David, who on one occasion ate bread that only the priests could lawfully eat? Then he made an amazing claim that justified his actions. He said the Son of Man was Lord of the Sabbath. In other words, as co-creator of the Sabbath with his Father in heaven, surely he knew what was and was not lawful on this day. Jesus had an opportunity on another Sabbath to heal a man with a withered hand who was in the synagogue. He knew his opponents were ready to accuse him of violating the Sabbath if he healed this man, so he asked if it was lawful to do good or evil on the Sabbath. Apparently there was silence, and Jesus proceeded to heal the man's hand. His question appeared almost prophetic as the scribes and Pharisees, enraged at the good he had done, plotted evil against him. Later, Jesus prayed through the night, then called his disciples to himself. From these disciples, his followers, he called 12 apostles. The word apostle literally means messenger. These 12 men were common, ordinary men from all walks of life, but now Jesus chose them for special work. He would teach and train them, ultimately sending them out to preach the gospel to the entire world. In the latter portion of this chapter, Luke records one of Jesus' sermons. In it, Jesus gives us a glimpse of what his kingdom was all about. Those who enlist in this spiritual kingdom are not necessarily the physically rich or mighty, but those who seriously contemplate their spiritual poverty and need. These are the ones to whom Jesus promises the blessings of God. Jesus underlined one of the most important and challenging principles that governs those who want to follow him. Jesus insisted that we must love or show goodwill to all, even our enemies. Even sinners can love those who love them. He made several demanding applications, urging disciples not to return evil for evil. In doing so, we show others the same mercy our Heavenly Father shows us. He warned against a self-righteous judgment that sees only the faults of others and is blind to our own faults. We must always pay close attention to our own lives first. However, this does not prohibit us from determining what is good or bad, because Jesus proceeds to describe a tree that bears good fruit or bad fruit. He then likens it to the fruit that we bear in our own lives. A good man produces good things because his heart is good. Likewise, an evil heart makes a man evil when he produces what is evil. It is necessary and possible for us to judge between right and wrong, and to know good from evil. Jesus ended his sermon and the chapter with a call to action, stressing the foundation on which we build our lives. One who proclaims Jesus as Lord but refuses to do what he teaches is building on sand. Those who do what he teaches build their foundation on rock. We must take the words and actions of Jesus to heart. If we follow him, we may need to reject some of our cherished traditions if they don't come from his word. We must first see our need and commit ourselves to following him wherever it is that his teaching leads us. That concludes our review of Luke chapter 6. You are now ready to read and study Luke chapter 7. We hope that as you read, you will gain a better understanding of what Jesus did and taught while he walked upon the earth. This evidence provides a basis for his claim to be the Son of God. Remember, if you have questions, select the questions link at the bottom left and email your question to us on the form provided. We will reply as quickly as we can. We hope that your study of Luke will provide you with a greater understanding of this gospel, just as God intended.